Okay, welcome to our first MBA UCN talk on strategic thinking for 21st century management. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. On behalf of the MBA program at Universidad Católica del Norte, I warmly welcome all participants from Chile, Canada, and around the world. Strategic thinking is the ability to anticipate, envision, and manage an organization's future with flexibility and systematic approach. In the 21st century, it is essential for managers as it enables them to navigate complexity, lead with vision in changing environment, and make decisions aligned with long-term objectives. We are honored to have with us today Professor Nelson Dueñas from the Telfer School of Management, University of Ottawa. Is a professional accountant and holds a Ph.D. in accounting and MBA from Concordia University. Nelson has industry experience in external audit, financial accounting, and financial analysis. Regarding to working experience, he worked at the United Nations Joint Inspection Unit in Switzerland and was a consultant to UNCTAD for the implementation of the accounting development tool in Colombia. Professor Dusan Paredes from Universidad Católica del Norte is an economist and holds a Ph.D. in applied economics from University of Illinois. Dusan has industry experience in external advisor, direction, and economic analysis. Regarding to working experience, he worked at the government of Chile as productivity and impact evaluation committee advisor. As a special greeting to Rodrigo Delgado, director of CALDO, who has made it possible for us to be here together today. Thank you for being here. Let's begin this inspiring exchange on strategic thinking in 21st century management. Our guest speakers will each have 5 minutes to share their initial thoughts and context to the topic. Once they have all presented, we will move into the conversation segment. So, Nelson, the floor is yours for your 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Gustavo, and also extend my initial greeting to Professor Dusan. So I would like to share my presentation. I hope you can see it well. Just let me know if it doesn't work. I think, just one sec. Just wanna start here the proper presentation properly. Can you see it?
Yes.
Can you see it? Okay,
Yes, sir.
perfect. Just wanna the slideshow, start the slideshow. Just one sec. I'll start from there. Um, I would like to use this brief time to talk a little bit about how using management accounting research we can think about strategic thinking and strategic management. And for that, I titled my presentation as Loose References and Embracing Uncertainty. This is an idea that comes from management accounting research. So let's explore briefly these ideas. So first of all, I would like to mention that strategic thinking is kind of a ambiguous and wide concept because actually when I started to prepare this presentation, the first thing I did, okay, how is the definition for strategic thinking? If we can draw different definitions from different sources. So I went to artificial intelligence and asked ChatGPT and Gemini what was let's say, the imaginary collective around strategic thinking. So we may have different ideas regarding how to think and to analyze situations, anticipate future trends, and make decisions that align with long-term goals. And my point here is that we cannot find like a unique common definition for strategic thinking, but we can embrace the idea of strategic thinking. That is how we access a set of information that is limited, and using and interpreting that information, we can create competitive advantage for organizations, not only for business organizations, but also for nonprofit organizations as well. So when we draw to management accounting research, we can see, and I mean, different studies have shown that managers in the 21st century, in the 21st century, they do not need to have a complete set of information because we actually believe that performance measurement and managerial tools create exact mirrors of reality. But it turns out that it's not like this. Like all the metrics that we come up and all these sophisticated tools that we use to measure reality, they can only give us a loose reference. A loose reference is something that acts as a kind of guiding point, as a kind of guiding star, but does not completely represent reality in an objective way. So, what research has found is that managers act within a system that is full of weak references and measures that are incomplete. But those loose references provide a guiding point for managerial action. And in that sense, those fragile networks of information can still help managers to perform in an environment that every time is more uncertain. Uh, for this, also, management accounting knowledge, of the body of knowledge, management accounting provides us with two main principles that allows us to kind of direct strategies in the 21st century. The first one is the idea of sunk cost. When we are evaluating projects, evaluating capital budgeting objectives, sometimes we kind of drawn to this idea that we have invested too much on something, and because of that, we cannot let it go. That refers to the sunk cost fallacy, that sometimes it's better to let go instead of keep putting resources on something that is already in the past. So some cost should not be considered for evaluating projects on a strategic mindset. And the second principle is the idea of opportunity cost. As we may know, opportunity cost refer to the forgotten benefit that we let go because of a particular course of action that is already chosen. Uh, the problem with opportunity costs is that in many times they're hard to measure. However, when we can measure those opportunity costs, there should be included in our evaluation of alternatives given a particular business context. So pretty much what I'm trying to say with these brief ideas is that strategic thinking is all about embracing uncertainty. That those principles of management accounting related to loose references, opportunity cost, and sunk cost help us to navigate uncertain environments. However, there is no crystal ball in business, especially when I work with certain clients. We also use pretty much this sentence that we prefer bets rather than regrets because what we need to do is learn to recalculate. Strategic thinking is pretty much a kind of mental update. And in this sense, sometimes we can have no clarity at all, or we may not have complete information, but as long as we have guiding points, we can be like working towards a particular objective. I expect to expand a little bit on these ideas later on during the conversation. Thank you very much.
Creo que está muteado, Gustavo.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Professor
Okay.
Nelson. On time. And now we continue with Professor Dusan Paredes. Dusan?
Okay, it's okay. Are you able to see my screen? Just let me know when it's working, please.
Is charging.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. I think that for our MBA and for our university, it's a honor to be discussing with our friends in Canada. So Nelson, thank you so much for your talk, and actually I will try to develop a little bit more, but mainly from the economic perspective. We already have some perspective about the accounting, but in the economics we also have the same concerns, but maybe from a different perspective. But at the end of the day, it's exactly the same. No, it's this idea about how can we move in an environment where everything is changing every day, where you don't know exactly which one will be the incentives in the future. Okay, so in order to discuss that, I think that I will start with, given that we have a large number of students here, listen to us. What is the idea of strategic thinking? Okay, and I was reviewing an article in Harvard's Business Review, and there was a number that I was surprised. The 90% of CEOs in the main companies around the world, they think that the strategic thinking is very important for any crucial position in a company. However, when they ask to these 90% of CEOs about how can you recognize, how can you identify somebody who has a high level of strategic thinking, they didn't have the answer. It's something like we really want to have, a staff with a strategic thinking in our company. However, we are not able to identify them. So for this reason, I try to bring some ideas about which one is the definition. So technically, some person who has a strategic thinking should be able to anticipate the change. Should be somebody who is able to put in a kind of hard position the main assumptions that we understand about the reality. Is a person who has a very easy understanding in complex scenarios, okay? And at the end of the day, I think that is the most important idea. These people, they are able to always to keep in mind the long-term goals of the company, no? I mean, it's something like they are, even when they are trying to fight with the fires every day, trying to solving things with operating problems, but at the end of the day, they are very concerned about which one is the north of the company, no? So that means that strategic thinking is not all the things that you can find in TED Talks, influencers, or top 5 rules that are very famous today in YouTube or any social network, no? But even more important is that you should be able to react exactly to be focused in those things that are impacting in the long-term goals of your company. So that means that the good leaders react, okay? However, strategic ones reframe the game, okay? So that means I am a chess player. I love chess. And in chess, we have a rule. When you can't win, you have to bring the opponent to your problems, no? Because then you have opportunity. So I think that is exactly the same assumption here. So here I have the main skills that we are expecting of somebody who is working with, or who is trying to get this skill. First of all, strategic thinking is not about the predicting the future, okay? That means that you are prepared for the future, okay? This is not exactly the same, no? Second one, the strategic thinkers, they are very good for identify the underlying conditions, no? They are able to see some things that nobody is able to see, no? At the same time, you have to accept that this kind of workers or this kind of leaders, they really want they love the conflict the most of the time. No, they really want to shake the status quo in all the companies. And at the same time, and I think that the number 4 for me is one of the most important. Today, we have tons of data. That is not a problem anymore. So that is very strange because maybe 10 years ago, we were discussing and we were teaching to our students about how can you get more data, no? How can you take decisions with more data? And today, we don't have this problem. Today, we need some people who is able to make synthesis, no? Somebody who is able to take all this information and take good decisions even when they don't have the complete picture about the future. Finally, these kind of leaders, they must not be reactive. They need to think in strategic decisions every day. And maybe the number 6 is one of the most important things. Today, you need to mobilize all the people in order to work under the same goal for the company. And today, that is a main challenge that any strategic thinkers should have at the moment of operating and working in the society. Okay, and finally, that is a continuous process, of course. All the things that we know right now, maybe in the next very soon future, doesn't work anymore. And actually, that is a rule technically. Okay, so thank you so much. I was almost in the time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Dusan. Before we begin the discussion, I'd like to greet all of our attendants, our students, faculty members, alumni, and everyone joining us today. Please let us now in the chat where you're tuning in from. Also, I want to remind you that the chat is open for your questions. Feel free to share your thoughts. They will enrich our conversation. So let's get started. First question. How have management demands changed in the 21st century in relation to strategic thinking? Professor Nelson.
That's a very good question. Thank you for that, Gustavo. And I think I will tie this with some ideas that Professor Dusan already mentioned. I think the main challenge right now in comparison with previous periods of time is how everything changes much more rapidly and much faster than in previous times, because before we used to have this kind of plateaus where you may have a new set of conditions, but those new set of conditions tend to remain on a longer period of time. Right now, we have seen increasing periods of, we have tariff wars, and we have pandemics, and we have increasing wars and different upheaval processes around the world. So I think that managers should be more, let's say, rapid in trying to adapt to new situations.
Okay, important. Dusan, please.
Yeah, I think that I'm in the same line. I think that today, when you, for example, given that we are here working with future MBAs, I think that the environment that they will face will be changing every day. And that means that at the end of the day, you should try to learn some new skills, no? So think about the intelligence, artificial intelligence, for example, no? Today we are still reacting against the AI as a threat, no? It's something like maybe it's a future substitution of my job, no? But however, at the end of the day, it's like assistant for you. I mean, you can do a lot of things that maybe 1 year ago was absolutely impossible to do it. So you have to reframe the thinking about the leaders in the future. So think about that, for example. Let's go to say that you will have a very important meeting with a mining company and you don't have time for preparing your meeting, no? So in the past, I mean, when I say the past, I'm talking about maybe 1 year ago. You need to maybe call somebody, pay for the time of somebody for preparing the meeting, no? But today it's something like you only need to work, turn on the computer, ask to ChatGPT about that. With some level of error, you will have information. So it's not a threat for you. No, it's a complementary service. So I think that this is something that we will need to change in all the business schools in the future. No.
Yes, the management has shifted from an operational focus to a strategic one. And today, managers are expected to lead in volatile context, linking daily decisions to long-term vision, uh, anticipation demand, anticipation skills, agility, and system thinking. Yes, it's too important. Now, let's talk about multiculturalism and its role in strategic thinking and global leadership. Second question. Why does multiculturalism in work teams require more sophisticated strategic thinking? Dusan?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are many answers for this one. So first of all, today we don't have frontiers around the world, okay? With the remote work, actually, we can be working with different teams in Canada, in Europe, in Africa. Actually, that is pretty standard in the academic life today. So in some sense, you need that the company should understand that these people have different idiosyncratics, for example, preference about the things. I mean, you need to accept that these people maybe they have different beliefs about the culture, about the society. So here in this point, the strategical thinking means that you should anticipate, for example, how this different perspective will play a role, no? Because at the end of the day, you need a team, no? It doesn't matter where each one is coming from. And this, maybe that is a more political topic, no? But today, I mean, if we move 10 years ago, everybody would say in the future, in 2020, 2030, the globalization will embrace everything, and there was only one nation around the world, and this nation is called Earth, and that's all. But today, we realize that the most of the leaders from different countries are sending a different message. No, they are closing sometimes the space, like crossing the frontiers. So I think that all the things that we were expecting that will be normal in this moment, they are not normal anymore. So here in this sense, strategic thinking is much more important to deal with that.
Yes. Nelson, what do you think about?
Yeah, that's a very good question because research has shown actually that the more diverse management teams are, the more firms are able to come up with uh, um, challenging times. And I'm mentioning this because usually, and this is something that at least here in the Canadian context we see a lot, is that in the global north, there is kind of this very rigid mindset regarding planning, scenarios, and procedures. And you have this kind of very managerial but very rigid mindset. And on the other hand, managers in the global south, because we need to acknowledge that our realities in Latin America are much more chaotic, to put it in a way, and we face much more upheaval times. Managers are more quickly to react. And here in the Canadian context, at least, managers that come from South America, from the Latin American, and work here in Canada, they're highly valued for that because they have this kind of ability to react quickly that usually you cannot see, let's say, in a typical global north scenario. So actually, I think that multiculturalism brings a lot into the table for helping organizations and firms to come up with a strategic and with challenging times. I think you're
I guess
muted.
that you're mute again, Gustavo. The microphone. Yeah.
Thank you again. Okay, involves understanding diverse perspectives, communication styles and values. Strong strategic thinking enables managers to integrate this difference into a shared vision. Yeah, interesting. interesting. Along uh, along those lines, we can now move on to next topic. What role does continuous learning play in developing strategic thinking to managers? Nelson.
Yeah, I think along the lines what I mentioned at the beginning, I think that strategic management has a huge component of mental upgrading. And the other day I was reading an article that mentioned how there is this constant fear right now with artificial intelligence taking over different jobs. But I think that more than artificial intelligence replacing people or particular professions is going to replace the people that do not know how to manage those different tools. So I think that comes to the idea that all the time we need to be in a constant upgrading. So that idea of continuous learning is a paramount principle of strategic thinking.
Dusan.
Yeah, I have the same I have the same feeling. I mean, we are in a breakthrough in the history of our economic development. I mean, there is no doubt about that. The closest scenario that I have is a time where we have the Industrial Revolution. No, before the Industrial Revolution, our GDP and all our production and the standard of life of people didn't show any evidence of significant growth, no. But after the Industrial Revolution, it's like something explode after that, and our standard of living increases a lot. No, the poverty rates they were reduced in the most of the countries, and even the companies they shifted to new geographical scopes. They move around the world, but now I think that we are facing a new challenge at the same level that the Industrial Revolution actually, and actually like Nelson says, it's a very important point because he's saying something that I agree. The people who will be crowding out in the market, in the labor market, will be the people who doesn't learn how to work with these new techniques, no. And that is interesting because even for our universities, it's like you're facing like a dilemma, no. What do you have to do? You have to say to your students an MBA or grad level, you don't have to use these tools. I mean, you should write your reports by yourself because I want to know how do you write, or accept the future. And I say, well, now all of you have an assistant for improving the writing, and now you have to think about what the machine has to write, no? So that means that I am pretty sure that we are still facing how to deal with that. So I think that will be the main challenge for the future area in strategical thinking, mainly in the academic world.
Yes, continuous learning keeps managers updated to trends, technologies, management approach. Yes, interesting. Given everything happening globally, especially the ongoing trade tensions and the recent implementation to tariffs by the US government, how are these developments affecting companies around the world? Dusan, what do you think?
So actually, I think that, well, technically here we have a very good example about how the globalization is always operating in the mining world, no? So as you know, on Canada, it's exactly the same situation, maybe in a different scale, but exactly the same idea. If you see how the companies are operating today, in comparison with how they were operating maybe 20 years ago, the landscape is absolutely different, no? So for example, let's think about the challenge imposed by the environmental conditions, for example, no? So maybe here in Chile 20 years ago, when the mining is operating, everybody will be happy because you will have a job and you will have employment and you will have a wage, no? And that was all. But today, the strategical thinking for the mining companies is more complex than this moment, because today You have to get a social license for operating. And for these kind of things, you need some leadership who were able to understand this new challenge, no? And I don't know, maybe I was reading a piece of information that 10 years ago in Chile, you all spent 2 years in opening a new mining company. Today, you are spending 8 years for doing exactly the same thing. No, why? Because sometimes you don't have the leadership, the strategic thinking in the leadership for dealing with the new demands of the society. No, for the people today, employments and wage are not enough for accepting no the operation of this kind of strategic company. So at the end of the day, I think that this is a new challenge for the complete society.
Yes, Nelson.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And actually, it may sound like a cliche, but I believe that crises are a huge source of opportunities. And right now, the ongoing developments that we have seen around the world with these tariffs war and the trade war will bring new opportunities for countries to actually strengthen their own internal economies. I'll give you a particular example of Canada. Canada, because of its geographical situation, has one main strategic partner in trade, which is the US. And right now, with all this situation, they have been starting to reevaluate how to actually make stronger their internal industries because all of the situation. If this type of trade escalation were never happen, maybe Canada will never actually took the step to start to consolidate their internal industries and look out for other partners beyond the US. So I think in that sense, these challenging times can also be a source of opportunity for countries and for firms to actually look elsewhere rather than the main, let's say, the usual suspects in terms of international trade.
Yeah. Well, how can strategic thinking help managers deal with uncertainty today, Nelson?
Yeah, like the other day we were like I was working with a research team that works with some pharma companies in Europe, and one of the things that we were discussing is that a lot of times managers want to have this kind of crystal ball that, hey, tell me what is the new technology that is going to revolutionize everything so I can put $20 million and invest on it. But the reality is that you're not going to have that type of information or knowledge, but rather you need to work with kind of loose references, as I was mentioning in the beginning. So, for instance, instead of knowing that particular revolutionizing technology, instead you can deploy your resources in something that maybe you know that in 7, 10 years from now it will be completely outdated and old-fashioned. But as long as that, let's say, average technology allows you to get a competitive advantage for the next 3 to 5 years, and as long as it justifies the investment, covers your fixed cost, and helps you to contribute to your bottom line, that's okay. We cannot be completely, let's say, we cannot have always gaining a lot of profit from that, but as long as it helps us create little advantages, we're advancing. And the idea here is to keep moving forward.
Yes, okay, muy bien. Dusan.
No, actually, I was thinking about exactly the same point. So the uncertainty is something that is there. It's something that will happen always. I mean, there is no this crystal ball, as Nelson says. And actually, you don't need a leader who is able to predict scenarios. You don't need that. You need somebody with a flexibility in the style of management, such that doesn't matter the scenario. At the end of the day, you will be able to adapt to it. No, so. I think that for the strategic thinking means that even I was reading a question there about this point. So sometimes we think that we only need the strategic thinking in the upper tier of the company, no, like the CEO and the CEO. But actually, it's something that should be across the complete organization, no. I mean, everybody should understand, even if you are doing some logistic stuff in your company, even you should understand that some of your tasks are related with operational things, but at the end of the day, you should understand that these operational things are contributing to a long-term goal in the company, no? And today, the complete company need to know about that. Now, for example, in my case, because my main experience is in university, today you need the complete university understanding which one are the main challenge, in the environment that we are facing, no? So the uncertainty is there, will be there always, and technically is the reason why we grow at the end of the day. Without uncertainty, I am not very sure that, for example, in the case of Canada, as Nelson said, I don't know if they will turn on to the national companies in order to reactivate the industry. I think that these kind of things only will happen when you are facing new scenarios. It's something that you can avoid.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
also, I just wanted to add a little bit something additional to what Dusan mentioned, and is when you actually go, I remember back in 2019, if you go and check the main risk reports at the end of the year, they usually the big four companies issue, no one mentioned that a pandemic was coming in. And so that's the thing. And I'm not misjudging that. What I'm trying to say is that we have an entire teams of professional risk assessment evaluators, and no one was able to, I mean, maybe science was telling a little bit from a couple of years before, but no one was able to actually tell that that was something that was coming. And actually, that's part of uncertainty. That's reality, as Dusan was mentioning.
Yeah. So even just let me add a little detail about that.
yes.
Do you remember when the pandemic started and the remote work started? The most of the economists and also people in business, we say, okay, the landscape changed. Now everybody will work at home, and this is a new world. But after 1 or 2 years, people say, no, I don't want to work at home technically all the time. I need to return to so that means that even sometimes when in the future you are facing new scenarios, and sometimes that you are in a new scenario, even after that, sometimes the life say, no, that is just a short-term equilibrium, and now we'll come back to a new equilibrium, no? So that is a piece of evidence that actually the uncertainty is something that you have to embrace at the end of the days. It's something that you have to flow with the uncertainty more than try to guess which one is the right way to walk at the end of the day. Are you mute, Gustavo?
Okay. We have questions in the chat. The first question, how can we implement strategic thinking in pymes? Neil Mesa. Nelson?
That's a very good question. I think that regardless of the size of the company, I will say that the best strategies are the ones that are highly specific, highly measurable, and those that have a clear language communication. Because sometimes companies, when formulating strategies, they put it too broad, too ambiguous, like, I want to be the best. Yeah, but the best in what? In loyalty, quality service, profits, revenues. So, and also sometimes strategies can go to the other extreme, which are they're highly complicated in the way they are formulated. So I think that the clearer the language and the clearer the communication style of the strategy in your company, it makes it much feasible for implementation because everyone will be on board and will understand which direction they need to follow in.
Okay. Next question. Do you believe, Patricia Ramirez, do you believe that at some point all people within and company should develop strategic thinking? Dusan?
Yeah. That was exactly the question that I was making reference some minutes ago. I think that yes. I mean, I will connect with the pyme question. When you are in a pyme, like a very small company, or when you are working with your son or with your wife in a small setup, in the reality, you don't have time for thinking about the strategic thinking. No? You are dealing with trying to with the transport service, try to making the quality service. But in some moment, if you really want to have some opportunity of increasing the size of your company, you need to understand which one is which one is this long-term output that you want to reach, no? But it's like a trade-off, no? How can I think in this future if I don't have time given all the stuff that they have to do right now, no? So that's the reason why I think that the planning of companies, no, should change, okay? Because today we are extremely concerned about profitability, reducing cost, increasing profits, but we're not concerned about how much time we are dedicating to think about which one will be new future, which one, how can I open a new market, how can I think out the box, no? So I think that there is a change that we are facing right now. I think that we are just starting this change. But in some moment will be even more important than the standard skills that we are requiring in business people.
Okay, great. Next question. Good evening. I'm Carlos Burgos, MBA theory. Okay. Professor Dusan said we must anticipate change. The world is changing rapidly, and to prepare for it, which area should we work on first? Culture or technology?
Yeah. No, here actually maybe like Celia Cruz said, maybe my English was not working properly. But actually, I didn't say that technically you have anticipated change. I mean, I'm just saying that the change, I mean, I'm saying that the change is something that will happen anyway, even if you are expecting, even if you are not expecting that, no? So for the Latin American countries, here I am crossing with the idea that the South Pole that was working Nelson, no? Here, I think that we are not very flexible for changing things from one day to another day. I mean, our culture is a chaotic culture where we love the improvisation, we try to take decisions on the way. And of course, I think that this is a cultural barrier sometimes in these cases, no? So in my opinion, the technology is a secondary, I mean, it's important, of course, but the culture is much more important. And I think that here in Latin America, we still have a lot to do with that, no? So for example, here in Chile now, I don't know if Nelson, if you know, but we reduced the working hours maybe 1 year ago, from 48, maybe 15 years ago to 40 right now. Why? Because we are watching the reality of the developing countries. However, which one is the causality? No, I have a higher productivity because I work in less, or I work in less because I have a higher productivity. So that means that our culture sometimes is a huge barrier for trying to capture part of this new advance that we are able to see in the developed countries. I think we sometimes we think that it's just a copy exercise, no? But actually, that is not true. That is not true. We need some cultural change too.
Nelson, what do you think about this question?
I'm along the same lines of Dusan, uh, in the sense that I mean, like sometimes, and especially with these highly uncertain times, people tend to value a lot technology, but if you don't accompany that, if you don't join that with a strong culture and a culture that is able to adapt and now how to implement those technological changes, is gonna be not good. I'll give you a particular example. I work with marginalized in a research project. I work with some marginalized communities in Colombia that are affected by civil war and a lot of high degree of poverty. And even though you can give these communities, let's say, machinery or a particular technology that maybe help them to overcome the difficult social realities they face, when you don't have the proper culture to accompany that, at the end of the day, the impact that those particular projects have on the life of those populations is not as big. So pretty much we have the technology, but we don't know how to use it. And that, let's say, not knowing how to use it, that technology comes from a lack of a proper culture and a tone at the top that help us to implement those changes.
Okay. Last question. What strategic thinking tools are most useful for 21st century managers? Nelson.
Well, I will condensate that in the idea that strategic thinking is meta thinking, meaning thinking or having the consciousness behind the entire management process. So I think that the main tool will be a highly conceptual one, which will be critical thinking and awareness. Awareness of what is happening. So it's not like if I see something on the news, it's not maybe what the media is trying to tell me or what I see on the newspaper every single day. So it's trying to actually to how to read the underlying text behind all those changes that are happening. So for instance, right now with the trade war that was started by the Trump administration, you may say, okay, what's the purpose of Trump being here? Like he wants to be a bully with other countries, but actually you may learn the subtext that maybe he actually wants to reset the global economy for a particular geopolitical objective for the US. So I think trying to anticipate those things are pretty much at the core of strategic thinking.
Okay, Dusan.
No, actually, I think that if I should bet for one skill, so this idea of try to challenge the status quo maybe is the most important thing. I mean, for example, when I teach in macroeconomics or economics and I teach in, contents and theory, every time that I'm doing that, I am thinking if I doing the right thing, no? because sometimes maybe I should try that these students, they should make a kind of, they shouldn't believe everything that I'm saying. That is my point. No, they shouldn't believe it. Okay, but at the end of the day, I'm forcing them to believe. No, so I think that is a change that we need to start in the educational system, because we are still teaching under this idea that I am right. No, I am the professor, I'm right. I have the theory, and given that nobody is against the theory, then the theory is right. No, but like Nelson said, I mean, maybe we need a student that they say, well, I disagree. Maybe that is not right. I don't have the right one, but at least I know that that is not right. No? And I think that today, given all the bunch of information that we have in the social networks, in the TV, radio, internet, it's very easy to send wrong information to everybody. No, so I think that that is a skill that maybe we will need to develop in the short run, actually, definitely.
Okay. Well, time has flown by clearly. There is still so much more to explore on this fascinating and important topic. Thank you all for your participation and thoughtful contributions. We look forward to seeing you again in a future session on MBA UCN CALDO. Until next time, thank you, Professor Dusan Paredes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor
Thank you.
Nelson Dueñas.
Thank you.
See you. See you.
Until
Bye
next
now.
time. Bye-bye.